The late afternoon sun cast a warm glow over the bustling outdoor terrace of the Hôtel de la Lumière, a glittering spot nestled in the heart of Paris. Emma adjusted the simple white apron tied neatly around her waist, smoothing down the crisp cotton uniform that marked her role as a waitress here during the charity fundraiser. She moved gracefully among the elegantly dressed guests, a quiet presence amid the buzz of laughter and clinking glasses. Her dark hair was pulled back into a tidy bun, and though her hands were nimble and practiced, there was a subtle tension in her shoulders. This world of wealth and extravagance was not hers, yet here she was, serving it with a practiced calm. At a corner table draped in ivory linen sat Celeste, a striking woman with sharp features and an air of untouchable confidence. Dressed in a flowing silk gown, she was the queen bee of her circle, surrounded by friends who hung on her every word. Celeste's eyes scanned the terrace until they landed on Emma. A smirk played on her lips. "She looks out of place, doesn't she?" Celeste whispered in French to her companions, her voice dripping with derision. "Like she wandered in from the wrong neighborhood." The friends chuckled low, ready to join in. Emma approached with a polite smile, unaware that she was the subject of the scornful whispering. As she poured wine into the crystal glasses, Celeste leaned in, her tone sharp yet amused. "Je ne comprends pas comment elle peut oser servir nous avec ses vêtements si simples." The laughter bubbled up around her, a cruel sound ringing through the elegant air. Emma paused, the first flicker of discomfort washing over her, but Celeste's eyes gleamed. This was the beginning of her little performance. Celeste's laughter rippled through the air, sharp and unrelenting, causing a few heads to turn toward their table on the terrace. Her friends joined in, their snickers weaving with the gentle summer breeze, making Emma's skin prick with a flush of embarrassment. "She truly looks like she's from the wrong side of the tracks," Celeste whispered again, louder this time, enough for nearby ears to catch the sting of her words. "Can you believe she's standing here among us, serving wine in those plain clothes? It's almost laughable." Emma's hands trembled slightly as she adjusted the wine bottle, trying to focus on her task and the swirling red within the glasses rather than the invisible weight settling on her chest. The smile she mustered for the guests felt brittle. Her vision blurred momentarily, the voices were distant, replaced by the growing knot of shame and anger in her throat. Around her, the other guests began to notice. A few exchanged uncomfortable glances, some shifted awkwardly in their seats while others seemed entertained, watching the unfolding spectacle as if it were a drama staged for their amusement. Emma kept her eyes fixed on the crystal, her throat tightening as the words in French from Celeste continued, cutting deeper each time. "Look at how she carries herself, like a servant pretending to be anything else. Absolutely out of place." One of Celeste's companions, a tall woman with a glossy bob, caught Emma's stare as she bent to refill a glass. The sharp glance between them was laced with derision. Emma's heart pounded louder, her cheeks aflame, but she said nothing. She spoke no French among the guests to attract attention. She believed in staying discreet. Now, that veneer of invisibility had cracked. Celeste's smirk tightened. "Why don't you bring us more wine, mademoiselle?" she ordered in French, voice louder and dripping with sarcasm. "We wouldn't want our poor servers to get tired, would we?" The group laughed again, louder this time, the sound spreading like wildfire among tables nearby. Emma's fingers gripped the bottle, her knuckles pale, but she remained composed. "Certainly, madam," she replied softly, her voice steady but quiet. She moved away swiftly, cheeks burning, a flood of turmoil coursing through her. Each step felt heavier, every eye seemingly fixed on her retreating figure. Back behind the bar, Emma took a slow breath, pressing the heels of her palms against her temples in a desperate attempt to calm the storm of emotions swirling inside. But the humiliation clung stubbornly. She felt the sting of judgment in every glance, the cold judgment that spoke louder than words. She caught the eye of Jacques, the maitre d', a kind older man who noticed the subtle shift in her demeanor. His concerned nod was a small comfort, but he was busy managing the event, powerless to shield her from the sharp tongues of the privileged guests. Emma considered slipping away to the small staff room to gather her thoughts, maybe even call her friend Sophie to vent about the evening's cruelty. But the terrace was still alive with noise, and she needed to return to her duties. She couldn't afford to falter, not here, in this place where appearances seemed everything. Just as she was about to set down the decanter, Celeste's voice rang out again, this time cutting through the clinking glasses and murmured conversations like a knife. "Where are you off to? We haven't finished our wine, nor our entertainment." Her friends chuckled, waiting for the drama to continue. Emma could hear the mockery laced in the words. She felt trapped, every possible retreat blocked by Celeste's intent to prolong the spectacle. There was nowhere left to hide behind professionalism or silence. "I'm here to serve," Emma said, her voice firmer now, bracing herself as she turned slowly toward the table again. The crowd had noticed the exchange, a few had stopped their conversations to look. The terrace had morphed into a theater, the stage set for her discomfort. Celeste's eyes gleamed with triumph. "Ah, but what a strange server we have. So timid yet so bold in her silence. Tell me, mademoiselle, what do you do when you leave these halls? Do you dream of places beyond your reach? Or is this all you know?" The laughter that followed was more pointed, as if the punchline was meant to cement Emma's unworthiness. She felt the weight of the stares, some amused, others pitying, a few clearly judgmental. The sting of being publicly marked, her professional dignity eroding under the weight of undisguised disdain, was crushing. Emma's mind raced. Should she answer? Retreat again? Fight back? Yet, the words tangled up in her throat. Her training, her humility, urged her to keep quiet. But somewhere deep inside, a quiet fire sparked, one that refused to be snuffed out by ridicule. As she prepared to speak before the assembled guests, the chatter around her faded into a dull roar, every eye focused on the unraveling scene. Emma stood on the precipice of a turning moment, to rise and reclaim her dignity or slip further into silence beneath the laughter. The tension was electric, the balance of power suspended. Celeste's mockery had held the spotlight, but Emma's response would determine what came next. What would you have done if you were Emma? Would you endure in silence or stand up in defiance? The crowd waited, breaths held, as the night's events poised on the edge of change. Emma drew a steady breath, her mind sharpening as seconds stretched and the murmurs of the guests swelled around her. The laughter and cruel whispers morphed into a distant hum, replaced by the steady rhythm of her heart. The weight of Celeste's mockery pressed down on her, yet something inside her refused to stay buried beneath the sneers. With a quiet but clear voice, she began to respond in flawless French, choosing her words with care, precision, and a hint of poise that surprised even herself. "Madam," she said gently yet firmly, "it is easy to laugh when one believes their place is secure. But respect and dignity are not measured by the clothes we wear or the roles we play, but by the kindness and knowledge we carry within." Her pronunciation was impeccable, each word ringing out with a clarity that cut through the derision like a blade. Celeste's eyes widened in surprise, her smirk faltering. "Pardon," she whispered, the confidence waning as her group fell silent, all eyes now fixed on Emma. Her friends exchanged uncertain glances, their amusement fading swiftly into curiosity. Encouraged by the sudden quiet, Emma continued, her voice gaining strength. "You have judged me by appearances, yet you misunderstand me entirely. I am not merely a server this evening, I am a student of French literature, passionate about its poetry and beauty. Allow me to share a verse you may recognize." Guests shifted in their seats, some leaning forward. Even Celeste's expression softened, a flicker of intrigue replacing her arrogance. Emma took a moment to collect herself, then recited, her voice steady and captivating. "Le vin, le vin, le vin, le du vin charmant. Que fait oublier aux hommes les tourments. Dans chaque goutte, un promesse civile. De joie, d'amour, sous la lune vermeille." The delicate poem flowed melodiously from Emma's lips, weaving images of wine, love, "Enjoy beneath the red moonlight." The words fell like a gentle tide across the terrace, silencing the crowd in a reverent hush. When she finished, a single beat passed before a smattering of applause quietly grew into an appreciative chorus. Celeste's friends exchanged awkward glances. Their laughter was gone, replaced by whispered admiration for Emma's eloquence. The socialite herself forced a tight smile, the veneer of superiority cracking beneath the unexpected display of intellect and poise. She swallowed hard, the sting of being outshone stirring a rare uncertainty. One of the guests, a gray-haired professor seated nearby, nodded approvingly, even whispering to his companion, "Her command of language is remarkable." Others murmured their agreement, their eyes reflecting newfound respect. The image of Emma as a mere server crumbled, replaced by something more complex, a young woman who deserved to be seen beyond her apron. The transformation was palpable. Those who had laughed at Emma's simplicity now found themselves embarrassed, shifting in their seats as the reality of their narrow judgment dawned. The tables had turned. The socialite's harsh words, meant to humiliate, had inadvertently opened a window to Emma's true self. Celeste, grasping for control, forced a laugh. "Ah, such talent from such humble beginnings. Perhaps we have underestimated you." But her tone hinted more of defensiveness than sincerity. Emma smiled gently, undeterred. "It is not humility to hide who we are. I wanted only to serve tonight, but kindness should never be reserved for the walls of this hotel alone." A ripple of applause followed, louder now, sincere and warm. Guests began engaging Emma with questions about her studies and her poetry, their curiosity sincere. She answered with grace, the confidence blossoming within her like the blooming of a rare flower. Celeste sat back, her friends silent, their amusement drained. The scene she had orchestrated to amuse her was undone by Emma's quiet brilliance. The more they sought to maintain their social image, the more the truth of Emma's worth illuminated the evening like a sudden flash of lightning. The professor, his eyes twinkling, approached Emma hesitantly. "Miss, your recital was beautiful. Might I suggest applying to the Sorbonne? Your passion and skill are clear." Emma's cheeks flushed, but she nodded. "Thank you, Professor. It has been my dream to learn here one day." Her voice was soft but filled with hope. Whispers swept the terrace about the unexpected scholar disguised as a waitress. The narrative had shifted, and the crowd's mood lightened with surprise and admiration. The silence of scorn had given way to an embrace of respect. For the first time that evening, Emma felt seen, not just as a servant or a simple girl in plain clothes, but as a person of depth, intelligence, and grace. The laughter that had once held her down now lifted her up. Celeste, no longer in command, toyed nervously with her wine glass. Her smile wavered as the impact of her ridicule rebounded upon her own image. The power she wielded began slipping through her fingers, and she was left confronted with an unexpected truth: the cost of judging others blindly. As the applause died down, Emma's gaze found Celeste's across the table and held firmly. There was no victory in malice, only the quiet strength of dignity standing tall amidst the noise. The terrace remained alive with a new energy, the night having changed course. Emma's courage and talent had not only silenced those who mocked her but had invited the gathering to rethink the nature of worth and respect. The guests resumed their conversations, but the warmth toward Emma lingered in the air. Celeste's circle, now subdued, watched as their queen of ridicule was unseated by the grace of a humble waitress who had revealed a hidden world beyond appearances. Tonight, the story was not about status or wealth, but about the quiet power of authenticity and poise, a lesson that would echo far beyond the glimmering terrace of the Hotel de la Lumière. As the applause dwindled into a warm murmur, Emma breathed deeply, feeling a serenity she had not expected to touch that evening. The guests, once skeptical, now regarded her with expressions softened by genuine admiration. Emboldened by their shift in attitude, Emma found a quiet corner on the terrace where she could finally catch her breath and explain a little more about who she was beneath the simple uniform, to one or two curious and kind guests who lingered. I know this outfit might suggest I'm just a waitress, Emma began softly, her voice carrying the humble charm that made her so approachable. But I'm actually a literature graduate from London. I'm spending this year volunteering here in Paris, hoping to improve my French and immerse myself in the culture before I continue my studies abroad. The modest clothes are a choice, travel-worn and practical, so I can work while immersing myself in this city I've come to love. Her audience listened attentively, their interest clear as Emma continued. I come from a modest background. Opportunities weren't always easy to come by, but I've learned to value knowledge and kindness over appearances. For me, wearing simple clothing is a way to remind myself where I come from and remain grounded, even amidst this dazzling world. One woman, a gentle-faced woman in a soft blue dress, smiled warmly and nodded. Your passion shines through, Emma. It must be difficult sometimes to be underestimated like that. Emma laughed quietly, a little embarrassed but honest. It is, but I try never to let it hold me back. The truth is, moments like this show me that people can surprise you. Some judge harshly, yes, but others are capable of listening and learning. And that gives me hope. Jacques, the maitre d', came over with a proud smile, clearly impressed by how Emma had handled the situation. You took the words that tried to hurt you and turned them into strength, he said, glancing toward the scene where Celeste and her friends remained quietly seated, scraping the last of their drinks. Paris is full of lessons, not just in literature, but in life. You showed everyone what real elegance looks like. Emma felt a warmth spread through her chest, a mixture of relief and validation. For months, she had struggled to keep her dreams alive while working long shifts, often feeling invisible amidst the glittering crowd she served. Now, her truth was out, not hidden beneath her apron, but shining plainly like the city's evening lights. She thought of Celeste, perched awkwardly at the table, her bravado deflated but still trying to maintain a semblance of dignity. Emma knew this altercation would linger, a memory etched both for her and the socialite. But she also knew that it was more than just a moment of personal triumph, it was a lesson for everyone present. Throughout the evening, a few guests approached Emma, asking questions about her poetry favorites and their significance. One middle-aged man, a well-dressed businessman named Julian, offered to connect her with a local writers' group, impressed by her knowledge and courage. Others nodded their encouragement, applauding not just her talent but her humility. As the night deepened, Emma's thoughts drifted back to the place where she'd grown up. She recalled childhood dreams scribbled in notebooks, days spent reading under tree branches, and the quiet determination that had carried her this far. None of it mattered to Celeste or her friends, but it mattered fiercely to Emma herself. Her simple clothes weren't a sign of weakness, they were a symbol of her journey. Meanwhile, across the terrace, Celeste's friends exchanged glances laden with unspoken apologies and an awkward realization of their own misplaced arrogance. The socialite herself seemed smaller, her usual self-assurance diminished like a balloon losing air. It became clear that tonight, Emma's quiet strength had dismantled the fragile walls behind which Celeste hid her insecurities. After a time, Celeste rose to leave, slipping through the crowd with her companions in tow, avoiding the lingering curious gazes. Emma watched them go, feeling no bitterness, only a serene sense of closure. There was no need for rage or revenge, the night had rewritten their story without harsh words, only truth. Her mind wandered to the days ahead. She still had the modest room she'd rented not far from the Seine, the dim light that filtered through the windows as she studied by night, the letters she wrote to her family describing the city's magic. She knew there would be more challenges to face, plenty of obstacles in a world that too often judged on surface appearances. But tonight had fortified her resolve. Emma glanced at Jacques, who was now overseeing the final preparations for the event's close. "Thank you, Jacques," she said quietly, "for believing in me." He smiled warmly. "Paris has many faces, Emma," he said, "but only a few know the worth of humility and courage. You have both." The hotel's grand clock chimed the hour. The last guests began to drift away, the terrace emptying but bathed in the soft glow of lanterns and fading laughter. Emma felt a quiet joy settle in her heart. This wasn't just a story about a waitress and a socialite, it was about the power of knowing oneself, of standing tall even when the world intended to shove you down. Tonight, Emma was no longer invisible. She was a woman who had reclaimed her voice and her dignity, a young scholar whose simple dress was no barrier to brilliance. And as she folded the napkins and wiped the tables for the last time that evening, she carried the certainty that her journey, though humble and unassuming, was full of promise. The terrace, once a stage for ridicule, had become a place of revelation. And Emma stepped forward into the night with a calm confidence that would carry her far beyond that glittering Parisian evening. The following days at the Hotel de la Lumière hummed with hushed conversations and a subtle shift in the air. The ripples of that night's confrontation between Emma and Celeste extended beyond the terrace, reaching the ears of the hotel's management and its star-studded clientele. Emma noticed it in the way waiters glanced at her with newfound respect, and how a few guests would smile in recognition as she passed by. Celeste, once the unchallenged queen of the social scene, found herself increasingly isolated. Word had spread like wildfire. The spirited, eloquent young woman who had silenced the mocking socialite had revealed a hidden depth that none had anticipated. Celeste, usually surrounded by admirers, now encountered cold shoulders and discreet whispers wherever she went. One afternoon, as Emma was arranging flowers in the hotel lobby, she overheard the muted tone of a conversation between Jacques and the hotel manager, Monsieur Durand. The discussion was terse and serious. "It's not acceptable," Durand said, folding his arms. "Her behavior during the fundraiser has offended more than just the staff. Our reputation relies on respectful interaction, and this kind of targeted humiliation damages us all." Jacques nodded. "I agree, monsieur. Emma is an excellent employee, professional and kind." But Celeste's attitude crossed a line. Doling out justice without public scandal was a delicate dance at such establishments, but the management had made their decision. That evening, Emma was discreetly informed that she would receive a promotion to head waitress, along with a small salary increase, recognizing her exceptional composure and dedication under pressure. Meanwhile, Celeste found herself facing consequences she hadn't foreseen. Invitations to exclusive gatherings ceased, and several patrons withdrew requests for private events where she was expected to play hostess. The socialite circle, uncomfortable with the public reversal of fortune, distanced themselves quietly. One particularly awkward encounter occurred at a private art exhibit a week later. Wearing her usual polished elegance, Celeste attempted to engage a group of well-to-do guests in conversation, but found herself met with polite smiles and thinly veiled indifference. Among them was Julien, the businessman who'd shown kindness to Emma after the fundraiser. "I'm afraid Celeste won't be attending the gala next month," Julien overheard murmured from a nearby group. His glance caught Celeste's briefly. For the first time, the socialite's eyes betrayed vulnerability. Consumed by her isolation, Celeste began to reflect. The arrogance and cruelty that once gave her a sense of superiority now felt like armor that had shattered under Emma's grace. Alone in her lavish apartment, Celeste found herself replaying the night over and over, the memory of Emma's calm, confident voice and unyielding dignity haunting her thoughts. The socialite reached out to the hotel management with an apology letter, expressing regret for her conduct and requesting a chance to amend the situation. The management accepted the gesture, but the damage had been done. Their focus was on creating a respectful environment for staff and guests alike, not on reinstating a divisive figure. Meanwhile, Emma embraced her new role with quiet pride, the responsibilities both challenging and rewarding. She found herself mentoring younger staff, sharing her experience and encouraging them to recognize their own worth and potential. The hotel's environment shifted gradually, fostering a spirit of mutual respect and kindness, inspired in no small part by Emma's example. Outside the hotel walls, Emma's life blossomed in unexpected ways as well. Julien made good on his offer to introduce her to local literary circles, and she found herself invited to participate in readings and discussions. The scholarship to study at the Sorbonne, once a distant dream, began to feel within reach. One evening, as Emma wrapped up her shift, she paused by the terrace where the fundraiser had taken place. The memories of that night, the humiliation, the courage, the unexpected triumph, washed over her with a gentle smile. The city lights sparkled around her, and she felt a deep sense of fulfillment. Celeste's fall from grace and Emma's rise had become a story whispered among guests and staff alike, not as gossip, but as a lesson in humility, strength, and the power of kindness. Emma thought about the many people who might face similar trials, underestimated or judged unfairly, and she hoped her story would inspire them to hold fast to their dignity and to speak their truths. As she stepped out into the cool Parisian night, Emma's heart was light. Her journey was only beginning, but she knew she would travel it with courage and grace. What would you have done in Emma's place? Have you ever faced a moment when standing up quietly but firmly changed everything? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to subscribe for more inspiring tales. See you in our next story.